Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and I'll add my best wishes to you. Hope you recover quickly. Secretary McDonough, it's so nice to have you before us again. Thank you for being with us here today. I want to talk to you a little bit about the concerns I have around military sexual trauma, but before I jump into that, I just want to say I had the great good fortune a month or so ago, or a couple months ago, to visit in the Portland CBOC as it was opening. And what a wonderful facility. You know, we spend a lot of time talking to the VA about, you know, how underserved our veterans are and how bad some of our facilities are, and to see this incredibly modern building with, you know, state-of-the-art care, all of the room you could possibly need, really thinking about every possible concern that a veteran could have to respect their privacy, to make it comfortable. You know, I commend any member of this committee who wants to see what a really great facility looks like. Come and visit that facility, and, you know, and have lobster while you're there. But I just can't even begin to describe it. And the fact that you could sit in the dentist chair in there and be looking out at the ocean, and just sort of the idea of how calm that would make you feel and how valued that would make you feel. So I'm taking up way too much of my time, but I just want to say that was great. It was a wonderful moment to see that. But let me jump into military sexual trauma, because it's a long and complicated topic, and I know we've discussed it before, but I'll try to summarize quickly. We discussed the 2018 OIG report, which found that 49% of MST-related disability claims were inaccurately processed. And unfortunately, in August, there was another report, and to summarize, it said 57% are not processed correctly. So the error rate is going up. I guess I want to know your reaction to that, what actions you're taking, and let me just throw in a couple of other things. I have a bill, Service Members and Veterans Empowerment and Support Act, which would improve the claims adjudication process. And it basically deals with this notion that currently only veterans with a PTSD diagnosis are eligible for relaxed evidentiary standard. But a different diagnosis, which is common with MST, like anxiety or depression, those aren't eligible. So I've gotten some feedback from the VA on the bill, but I would really like to work with you to move this forward. You know, unless you have another plan for getting these numbers up, we just have to make sure that all the veterans filing for compensation for mental health condition related to MST have access to the same relaxed evidentiary standard. Yeah. I think that would help a lot. So I'll let you talk.
Good. Well, thanks very much. And I appreciate the attention you pay to this issue, because it gets to something else I think you saw at the Portland CBOC, which is we also have to make sure that our facilities and our programming and our decision making is reflective of, hospitable to, and welcoming of the fastest growing demographic, which is women veterans. Now, it's not just women who are survivors of MST. It is women and men. But how we do on MST claims sends a really important signal to our women veterans who are survivors, and to our men veterans who are survivors. So here's what we've done year to date. We've adjudicated 10,179 MST cases. That's a 70, and we've granted in 78% of those cases. Now, it could still be that we are not granting rightly in the 22% that are not getting the claim, whose claim is not being found in favor of. But the way we're trying to get better on that is we've consolidated MST claims into 8 regional offices with specific teams with experience on these claims, and therefore better understanding of how to resolve these claims. So that's been since May 2021. Later this month, we're moving to a virtual regional office that handles all of these cases and just these cases. And that will be run out of San Juan. So I hope as we specialize in these cases, we get better on the error rate. The last point is we are constantly trying to get better. We're in the midst this month of a full training effort and updating effort of our claims providers. I think we're in touch with you. I know we're in touch with one of your colleagues on the authorizing side, Ms. Luria, about coming to help us as we're thinking about this. But as you say, we also have to be constantly updating our clinical practice. I just saw a big story about the fact that, by the way, standing to reason, survivors of military sexual trauma are more likely to have hypertension. And so we ought to be factoring that new science and those new findings into our practice at VBA as well. So all of this is us trying to get better. All of this is us trying to incorporate more science and more understanding of the phenomenon into our practice. And you're keeping the pressure on us by maintaining the attention on it helps us as well. We just got to get this right.
Okay, I'm out of time, but I want to, when we get a chance, I want to, push you a little bit on the evidentiary standard as well, because and I greatly appreciate the training and the thought you're giving to this, but we'll get a chance to work on that and talk to you about that as well. So Good. Thank you back, yield back, Madam Chair. Bye. Yes, I do. Yeah, thank you so much. And again, thank you for your continuing attention to our questions. One last thing on the MST, I just wanted to mention that we hear a lot of veterans about the lack of quality and their discomfort with the comp and pen exams, particularly those that are not done through the VA. About 10% look like they're done through VA providers. I know in Togus in Maine, 106 exams were done by contract providers, while just 22 were performed in-house. I'm sure some of that happens because you're trying to, move the process more swiftly. But we hear from a lot of people would really prefer if they had the opportunity to ask for their their exam be done in-house by a VHA provider. So I want to get to another question. So I'm just going to put that out there on the list of things like evidentiary standards, and I hope we can follow up and just pursue that.
What's going on, Matt?
One thing I really want to get to is PFAS. It's a major issue in Maine right now. We've got a lot of challenges going in our agricultural sector because, frankly, we've been forward thinking about looking for PFAS, and so we've seen a lot more than we wish we had. But we also know that happens on military installations, and we have the Brunswick Naval Air Station in my district, so we're familiar with some of the issues that could happen regarding military installation. I know the DoD has identified hundreds of these around the country that potentially has hazardous PFAS. And I just have concerns that we're not doing enough to address the exposure with the veteran population who have served this installations. You touched on the idea of a VA's new pilot model in your testimony for dealing with military environmental exposure. And it specifically mentioned that you're increasing your veteran outreach. But we hear a lot from veterans about the installation that they've served at, where they may have lived with their families and that they've tested, that the facilities tested for higher levels of PFAS, so they're concerned about their own health. But could you expand a little bit on what the VA's efforts are to improve outreach and whether they will include outreach to PFAS exposed veterans?
Yeah, so we're trying to expose, or as it relates to toxic exposure generally, we're trying to increase outreach, and that's through all of our standard ways to include making sure that, for example, as I said, when somebody takes the step of filing for the burn pit registry, that they see some result therefrom. I think in too few cases that's happened heretofore. So I'll give you, why don't I take for submission to you kind of what our comms plan is with veterans around toxics and around PFAS. That's one. Two, this is a major priority for the president, and he stood up for the first time in the interagency working group on PFAS. And you can imagine that obviously EPA is a key mover and shaker in that, but so is DOD and so is VA. And we're working very closely with the Council on Environmental Quality and OSTP, as well as the DPC at the White House, to make sure that as a government we're looking at this holistically. So we share your concern about it. We're trying to get our hands around it as a government and an administration holistically, and VA has a fundamental role to play in that as well.
Great. Well, I will follow up with those questions that we had for you. I know there's a lot of other people who want to ask questions and your time is limited, so I'll yield back. But thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I look forward to working with you on these issues. So thank you, Madam Chair.